afternoon. Welcome back to the Real Men of Real Estate here on KCAA Radio. It is Sunday, 1 p.m., every third Sunday, excuse me. You can find us here. And today I'm talking with Steve Matley about land flipping. So, Steve, we were talking about kind of what these things look like. Maybe we could step back for a second. And can you just kind of go over the overall structure of how these deals come together?
Sure. So the structure kind of depends on who you have and how you want to work with it. Generally, we do each project in its own separate business entity. We'll form an LLC for each project. And I know some people do an LLC and do multiple projects under those. We choose to do one per project. And there's some reasons for that. One of those, it keeps everything separate. So this particular group of investors and pot of money is for that project only. And God forbid, if anything went south and the whole thing caved in, it's only thing that anybody would lose is what's in that project. It doesn't touch anything else. So it doesn't poison any other project. So we keep it isolated. There's a little more expense and administration involved in that, but that's how we do it. And makes it kind of neat and clean. And so it's called syndication is what they refer to it as. So in this case, syndication does not refer to the, old episodes of Mayberry and those kind of things. Syndication, that it's a business entity where you invite other people to come in and participate in it. So they don't have to do this on their own with their own big pot of money. A lot of people with a little bit of money can add up to a pretty good chunk of money.
So this is a situation where you'd have general partners putting the deal together and running the business, limited partners who invest their money, but they don't get a vote, but they do reap the benefits.
That's right. And they're part owners of the company. They're not just on the side. They are actually part owners of the company. And so the manager in in all of our projects is Coast to Coast Equities. That corporation is the manager, which is three people, myself and my partners. And then we bring investors in to participate with us. Then the property we've usually tied up under us, we will assign that contract to the entity, whatever entity we've named it, that LLC, so that now that property is not just ours. Our property all belongs to the group that's us and those investors. All the reports and studies and everything we do belongs to that entity for the project. So the investors don't just own part of that property, they own all the intellectual property that is part of getting those approvals, plans and reports and studies and all those type of things. So when they're done, they own their percentage of the track map. They own their percentage of a recorded map. They own their percentage of the deck, right? So that's how we structure the projects.
Okay, so everything is pretty much standard legal agreements. There's not anything super special about this. This is something you could do for buying apartment complexes or any other, businesses, the whole nine yards, not just real estate.
Right. And you could use an S-Corp, you could use a general partnership, you could do whatever you wanted to. We just found the LLC works best for us for what we train.
I see. Okay. No, that makes good sense. All right. So you've found this place, you tracked the owner down, you worked with the city to figure out what their needs are, and you're meeting their needs. So, and we've, of course, now talked about the deal structure. What happens next? You've got to do something with this. How do you find a buyer? Disposition seems like a bit of a process.
Before that, we
something that you can sell on eBay.
Yeah, before that, we filed with the city, and we had to go through a public hearing process. So planning commission and city council, where all the friends and neighbors got notified what we were doing, and they get to come out and put their 2 cents in, and they can say thumbs up or thumbs down. Now, I'm going to ask you, Dave, did you ever go to a planning commission or city council meeting for something on the agenda that you supported, that you thought was a good idea? If you found out there was a building project in your neighborhood and you thought that's cool, did you go to the planning commission and let them know that's a great idea? Probably not.
I have not done that myself, no.
Yeah,
but I'm sure people do.
If one came up and you didn't want to see it next to you, it really irritated you, would you show up?
I would show up.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what happens when you go to the meetings. The people that show up are the people that don't want what you're doing, right?
Right.
But they're invited to come
in.
Yeah, they're invited to come in and put their 2 cents in, which is fair. So generally, because we've done everything we were asked to do and followed the general plan and followed the rules and everything like that, and it's all above board, generally, even if there's some dissenters that come in, if we've done everything correctly, we'll still get the approval. Normally, we don't have that because we're working in towns that are very pro-growth. And a lot of times the people don't come in because they're thinking, finally, if they build that lot over there will finally get a traffic signal instead of these stupid stop signs that make me back up every day. Or, maybe this will be enough to build a school in our neighborhood now, right? So that's kind of their thinking, is they're more pro-development towns. So then we get to the next step of, I've got my approvals. So what? What do I do with it now? Because now I've got a piece of dirt that's been approved for something different instead of a piece of dirt that wasn't. So I've got to go find someone that wants that and sell it. Generally, I knew who I wanted to sell it to when I started, which is why I did the project I did. I had a market study. So I knew that this needs to be 180 single family homes, or this needs to be 384 apartment units, or this needs to be a strip center with an anchor store that's a grocery store. I knew something, this has to be a business park. We knew what we wanted when we started, because our market study said that's what we wanted, and the local agency said that's what we see this being. And it worked. It penciled out. We did the work, it penciled out, everything worked. It looked like there was demand for it at the price that made a profit. And so then we go find that, we send it out, and we'll find a buyer. Now I will say that often, not all the time, often the buyer comes in well before we even get our approvals, because they're out, they see what we're doing. And if they come in early with us, they get to put their 2 cents in on the design to make sure it fits their product.
I see. Right.
So
and
now
especially if there's some chance to influence the city and how they zone it or whatever.
Exactly. And they want to make sure that, okay, if you're designing it for this use, that's fine, but I need to make sure it fits what I want to put on there. I have a certain style of apartment. I have a certain style of home. I have a certain arrangement I want to do my business park, whatever it is. And so we want to make so they get to have some say over it. In exchange, they basically go into escrow with us on their end while we're doing that. So it can work that way, or we can finish it up and then go shop it to people as a finished product. In that case, we've designed it for what's generally going to be the highest demand. And then we'll get some LOIs in. We look at those and figure out what's the best of the offers.
What is an LOI?
Oh, yes, that's a letter of interest, sometimes called letter of intent, but letter of interest. And that is, instead of a purchase contract, we got to take the offer or reject the offer. They say, we would like to make an offer based on this price and these terms. And that gives us an opportunity to look at multiples at a time, figure it out, talk to multiple people at a time, because once you have an offer, you're kind of stuck with that offer. You shouldn't be negotiating on the side. But if I have LOIs, I have the freedom to talk with different people about terms and conditions. That's usually what we're talking about, not so much price, because the price kind of pencils out the way it does. And then when we find one, okay, this is the one that's going to work and we have the highest probability of closing with, we'll put a purchase and sale agreement together and enter escrow.
All right. Wow. So the structure of the deal, how it fits in with the city and the ease and your buyer, the whole 9 yards. This isn't the normal, you can put it on the market and try and move it. It's got to make sense and be really well designed to fit everybody's needs right from the first kind of go, right?
Right. What's the old saying? Start with the end in mind, basically. So that's what we do.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing houses, I'm going to say, okay, what is the average? First of all, is there a demand for how many houses, and what's the absorption rate? How many houses a month can be sold out in this area? For what price? I figure all that stuff out and I say, okay, if the average home is going to sell for $500,000, then the builder has to make a certain profit and overhead, and therefore he has to be able to have once he does the construction cost, site improvement cost, all the other stuff, then how much is left for him to buy the land with our entitlements in place. And see, that we did that before we bought the land, because that told us how much to buy the land. And then we did our entitlements, and then the builder can buy it and put their improvement cost in, and their construction cost and their marketing and sales cost, sell the homes and still make a profit. Or it could be commercial, it could be someone buying it.
So for the house flippers out there and people maybe know more about that, it's the same concept where you make your money when you buy. You know what you're getting into. You know why. You know about where the market is. Barring a significant drop, you can engineer the solution right from the get-go.
Or an unforeseen condition. You open up a wall and you find a bunch of stuff you didn't expect in there. Yeah, that happens.
Right.
So that's the thing with rehab. So you never know what you.
Right, and you're not likely to have a change of city council that does a sharp turn in terms of their direction.
No, doing houses and buildings is an entirely different set of risks. Right. So on my property, because we did a soils report and stuff, I'm not going to open up a part of the property and find out that there's hazardous materials in there or something like that, or it's not going to be termite eaten, none of that kind of stuff, or a knob and tube electrical system that's still active or something. I'm not going to find those things in there because it's not a building. Right. So that's what people doing the rehabs have to deal with. I have to deal with other things, right, that are more legal based, basically.
Okay. All right. So you don't shop this around. Basically, at that point, you're done. If the city approves something, most of these deals are going to be going straight to a known buyer.
Great to known buyer or to a broker who knows all the buyers. It's a small fraternity. It's a small fraternity of people that are going to buy 200 lots somewhere, build homes.
Got it.
That's,
yeah, there's not too many. KB Homes, DR Hortons, the names we've heard before.
All those names, exactly. That's the people that are in the home building industry.
Yeah.
Or if it's commercial, I'm going to commercial brokers, right? And they're going to say, okay,
All
well,
right.
this, it's going to be a Westfield or someone like that.
All right. And what are the things that you do through this process to protect yourself?
Oh man, that it could be a whole show on its own, Dan. All those kind of things.
Yeah.
Mitigate the risk, because there's a lot of risks. One is very good contracts, especially our purchase contract with the underlying seller. We're very we have good attorneys that put those together with the right verbiage. And we also, one of our dangers is, since we're doing it in escrow, if land is appreciating quickly, so let's say we get done with this and it takes us 18 to 24 months to get this process done, and everything increased by 25%, their temptation is to drop us and go sell to someone else. So they have to understand, based on the language of the contract, you've been compensated for that. And if you try to do that, we will file a lis pendens on your property, which means nobody's going to touch it. Or you will be in court with us and tied up long enough that whether you prevail or don't, your property will be worthless because you'll be in the next down cycle out of it. Right? So those kind of things happen. That sounds mean, but we basically go in assuming everybody's going to honor their commitment, right? So that's one danger.
Yeah.
The danger about the
we'll have to pick this up on the other side. We're going to jump to a commercial break real fast here, but that's fascinating. There's a lot going on, folks. We'll see you after these messages. Thanks for listening this afternoon.